Coming up on today's episode of Parasport Nation, Zak Madell, wheelchair rugby star, has announced his retirement from the national program. He joined the show to reflect on his career and his favorite moments playing at home and abroad. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome in. This is Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth, and I'm joined by co-host Nathan Clement. Nathan, I'm appreciating your bucket hat style today. Clearly, you're in the mood to interview Zak Madell.
I'm here to honor the GOAT. I'm here to honor Zak, so gotta rock the bucket hat in style of Zak Madell. But where's yours?
You know, I haven't owned a bucket hat since I was probably about 15 years old. That said, I wore it religiously from age like 12 to 15, but then after that, it got too small for me. It got too kind of like damp and never quite like dried properly, so it was always kind of smelly and funky. It was time to move on. From then on, I've just been wearing Chicago Bears baseball hats. So that's how my hat style has evolved from those days of this like denim looking bucket hat. But I appreciate you had yours on hand, ready, donned it for the interview.
Yeah, had to do it, had to honor Zak. This is something that he's always worn, the cool styles, the great gear. Like, I've met him in Rio in 2016, but we really reconnected at a content summit. And I remember at that content summit, he was wearing like a leopard bucket hat as well as like a lightning bucket hat. And just that style that he had just stands out. Now, if you were ever to get back into the bucket hat game, would you have a go-to look or design that you would want to rock on your bucket hat?
Do bucket hats actually have a go-to look or design? In my mind, they've always just been the bucket hat. It doesn't matter what print, what color, what design is on it. It's the look of the bucket hat itself. There's no differential. To me, what you're wearing right now is no different from what I wore. Just it's red versus blue instead of a different color. I don't know. Could there maybe be one that, you get the buttons on the side, you can roll up the ends? Is that still a bucket hat? I don't know. I'm out of the bucket hat game, Nathan. I got no ideas on when it comes to style. I'm not a stylish guy. But yourself, when you're getting ready for a tournament, Zak he wore his bucket hats. He always had his fresh haircuts, letting the lettuce flow in the pre-tournaments and the warm-up and the introduction to different competitions. Would you be rocking bucket hats during a getting ready for a competition, or are you a bit more reserved and focused in at that point?
I haven't really rocked a bucket hat yet, but that could be a move for the future. I have been a big sweatpants guy. I like to wear sweatpants, especially when I was a swimmer before races there. In cycling, usually we're outdoors in hot locations, so sweatpants is not the most ideal move in the world, but it's usually like very flashy socks. I usually wear raccoon socks of raccoons eating cookies that I'll rock. Like, I've raced with them in the past, but now I have like more aerodynamic socks, so I usually rock the aero socks for when I'm racing, when I'm competing. But beforehand, it's usually like a goofy, loud kind of sock design that I go for before I race.
Plus, you have to show off the calves. I mean, you work hard for those calves in cycling. You got to be able to show them off, not hide everything like you do with swimming. Yeah. But I'm also curious too, like when you are kind of heading off on a competition, let's say like, abroad, so to speak, are you allowed to have any kind of your own personal touches in the wardrobe, or is it all like, this is branded, this is sponsored, this is what I have to wear at all times, I can't really deviate from this, even in a warm-up?
Well, when you're at a competition, it's team attire no matter what. It's a full business trip or business day kind of attitude towards what you wear. But for the off days, or even before you leave the venue, maybe not in like a Paralympic village or a games environment, you may be able to sneak some more casual clothes, say in the morning if you have like a later race, but usually you're so dialed in that you're just wearing whatever you have that's a part of the national team's attire. So you're just pretty well business day, but outside of that, you're wearing really goofy, really boring or silly shirts throughout that time.
I wonder, like, obviously there's the whole partnerships, there's branding opportunities, things like that. But I almost wonder, is that also a bit of a benefit for an athlete? Because there's so many superstitions when it comes to athletes. I mean, hockey guys are notorious for it. Rugby guys, they got a few themselves. But, like, I wonder if that makes it a bit easier. You can't wear the same lucky shirt or pants or potentially bucket hats if we're going to continue this line of thought. But you have to kind of abide by the certain dress code because there's so many superstitions about it. It makes it easy that you can't really dive into that. But what are some of the other like ridiculous superstitions that you feel like athletes kind of go through? I always think hockey players have just so many in terms of like how they're getting dressed, what they're wearing, the lucky socks, the lucky jock strap, God forbid. But what are some that you've come across?
I've heard so many and seen so many. One that's coming to mind is it came out a couple months ago how Sidney Crosby would go up to the same player game after game because he was on a point streak, he was on a goal streak, and he would just tell the same story again and again. And this poor guy had to listen to this 20-minute story day after day after day, but it was just that ritual. It's that tradition. And I've seen like athletes and different people have to put socks on a certain way. They have to do a certain pattern of getting dressed. They have to listen. Like, we know it all. The same music, same seat in the venue, same kind of motion, conversations. It can get really funny, really weird, and I've even seen, and I've even done it too, where you eat the same meal for like a week straight, for 2 weeks straight, leading into a competition. But Alex, you're a big J journalist. Do you have any pre-recording, pre-airing rituals or superstitions or even traditions that you go through before you're live on air, before you even record PSN?
I don't think I've ever really had superstitions. Like, for me, it's just reviewing the scripts, being comfortable with, okay, knowing what we're talking about, knowing who we're talking to, okay, going over the questions, making sure I got everything there, having, like, I guess the ritual that I have to go through is like, okay, I'm dressed for the show. Okay, I got to turn on the lights that are shining on my face right away. I got to make sure the webcam and the mic are plugged in. Make sure I'm looking like framed up properly, looking like I'm sounding somewhat decent. Okay, then I can join the meeting and go through that way. But other than that, it's just making sure I got a nice tall glass of water. I got my mason jar of somewhat water left. I got a couple of mouthfuls. It's been a lot of talking so far, but that's about it when it comes to my superstitions. But I appreciate them. I understand them. I just don't think every single kind of career or trajectory falls into a superstitious route. But when it's all about legacy and making sure you're prepared. And one person who was always prepared any single time he went out on the court was Zak Madell. And he recently announced his retirement from the international team. 13 years he represented Canada abroad. We're so privileged to have him join the show to reflect on his career. Here's our conversation with Zak Madell. Zak, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on an incredible 13-year career. How are you feeling now that you've officially stepped away from international competition?
I've had a little bit of time to process. Officially spoke with the team back in March. So I've had 2 or 3 months to kind of get figured out what's going to be next. I'm already well underway into another job and starting up a career. So I've been keeping too busy to really process, but I think a lot of the feelings, emotions have come and gone. Obviously, with the big public announcement last week, just feeling the overwhelming outpouring of love from around the world was really a cool opportunity. I had received hundreds of messages and comments and things from across the world with nothing but well wishes. So that was just a cool way to just feel like, I think as athletes, we're so caught up in our own little bubble, we don't realize what's going on around us or the impact we can leave. But a little moment like that to help you realize that we've helped hopefully move the sport in the right direction was pretty touching.
Zak, congratulations on an amazing career, and thank you for joining us today. You were introduced to para ice hockey and basketball before finding wheelchair rugby. What was that click with wheelchair rugby? How did you get involved, and how did you fall in love with that sport?
It all happened very quickly when it came to rugby, but I think the biggest thing was I grew up a lacrosse player. I mean, I played every sport under the sun, but lacrosse was always the one that I really enjoyed the most. It was the contact and the physicality of it. And so the first time hopping in that rugby chair, I just remember getting in, smashing into somebody at full speed, and a big smile coming across my face. And I think that's really when I was hooked. And shortly afterwards, a month later, I was invited to Team Canada tryouts for rugby, where I made a team at 16 years of age. And yeah, the rest is history.
And I mean, there's so much history there because you've played in 4 Paralympics, multiple world championships. Do you have a favorite memory from that career? I still, it's hard for me to still wrap my head around the 13-year career because I'm always remember being told, oh yeah, well, Zak Madell, he's the young up and comer. He's really, coming in. He's the next wave of athletes. Like, no, 13 years later, okay, you're still, this is the end of your career. But like during that career, were there any moments? You did mention London already.
So I'd say the top 2 moments, most of the time when people ask, like, my favorite memory would be that silver medal in London, first Paralympic Games. Obviously, at that time, didn't realize it would be the only Paralympic medal. We were always digging for more. But looking back, super fun memory. Another big one was 2015 Toronto Pan Am Games. Wheelchair rugby's first time being a part of the Pan Am Games, but also winning that gold medal on home soil to punch our ticket to go to the Rio de Janeiro Paralympic Games. This one I'll never forget. We've never had a home crowd on our side like that, either before that point or since then. So that's a really important memory I'll always treasure. And while we're on it, I still like to think that I'm young, even though I'm now 31 years old. However, the other day was pretty humbling. I went tubing behind a boat, and I'm still sore 3 days later. So maybe I'm not so young anymore.
We're all young at heart, which matters most. Throughout your time and being on the team for 13 years, there was many leaders, many different athletes on that roster. Was there any major mentors for you when you started your career on the rugby team?
I think early on, I was very fortunate to have 11 teammates who really took me under their wing leading up to those London Games. And a special shout out to Gary Hickling, who unfortunately recently passed away. But he was detrimental in that early on development process. And as the other 3-5 in the program at that point, kind of showing me the ropes and passing on that knowledge that I like to think I've done my best to pass on to the next generation of rugby athletes in Canada.
Your coach, Patrick Cote, he described you as a revolutionary player and how you changed the sport and with your pace and speed. How would you describe your play style?
It's a tough one. I always like to think I was a little shifty, trying to be elusive. For my first tournament, there was a guy out there and he goes, he's like a butterfly. I just don't know what he's going to do next, trying to chase me around on the courts. And yeah, I think I took some inspiration from different basketball players, watched a lot of NBA or stand-up basketball. So that Kevin Durant's with kind of that change of pace or the hesitation moves. Pat Anderson, wheelchair basketball GOAT, just seeing what he's able to do with there. And so I think trying to use those inspirations from other sports, other athletes maybe. At the end of the day, I was just going out there doing my job. I didn't really think of it as doing anything special or trying to model myself after somebody else. It's nice to be a trailblazer and figure out your own path sometimes. Not trying to be someone you're not.
Many teammates and even like a part of the Paralympic collective, because we're one giant team at the end of the day. You are a leader, you are a mentor for so many. But we really want to know, how did you approach your leadership on and off the court?
It's a great question. I'm going to need a second to process that one. I think a big part of it was always just trying to be a good ambassador for Paralympic sport, especially as a Canadian athlete. We take a lot of pride in what we do, but just helping to, if we're going to be going out there and seeing the Paralympic movement coming as far as it has, just making sure that we have good ambassadors out there representing the sports and the disabled community the way that we want to.
I love it that we made it this far into the conversation. We haven't even touched on the iconic bucket hats, the haircuts that you always did before tournaments. We literally have Nathan on screen wearing the bucket hat in honor of you. Where did the tradition and the looks come from that you wanted to kind of bring that to your competitions?
We get these cool kits with all kinds of fun, colorful articles of clothing in it. So it'd be a shame not to wear every single item in there at least once. And some of the teammates, I mean, sometimes I remember looking back, Tony and I would always try and coordinate magic outfits. I mean, we're grabbing the wristbands over there, we're grabbing headbands, we've got fun sunglasses to go with it. I think just trying to really have as much fun as you can with the Paralympic experiences.
Do you have an all-time favorite look or favorite wardrobe you've rocked?
Yes, Paris closing ceremony outfit. Unfortunately, I was already out of the village by the time closing ceremonies took place, but I was tuning in from elsewhere in France on a little post-Paris vacation, and you better believe I had my closing ceremony outfit on to tune in and watch the other Canadian athletes get to come in and enjoy the festivities.
Oh, that's awesome. For yourself, is there a sport or a hobby that you always wanted to try or get into, but you couldn't because of whether it was the concerns of getting injured while playing rugby, or just the the demands in the scheduling of rugby?
I've been playing a little more tennis these days, just as a fun way to get outdoors, get some sunshine, stay in shape. Playing a lot of basketball still these days, still involved in the rugby community. So I don't think I'm fully done suiting up or hopping a rugby chair, just not at the international level. I've yet to jump out of an airplane, and I might have an opportunity to go skydiving here at some point in the future. So stay tuned for those videos.
You've been an amazing ambassador for wheelchair rugby, but also Paralympic sporting world in Canada and around the globe. And one thing, we want to go back to that start when you were that kid making that London team. What would you say to the next generation who are going to be hopefully in your position, dressing up for their first games or going to their first competition, their first camp? How do they go on that path and that journey where they find that sport that they love?
I think I always encourage people to try a lot of different sports. As you know, you've ended up in a different sport in your career. Sometimes the first 2 or 3 sports you try might not be the best one for you, or the best fit for your function or your ability levels. And so going out and keep trying different ones. And I'm not a big fan of specializing in a sport. I mean, I was at a Paralympic level for 13 years, and I was never fully devoted to rugby. I was still playing basketball on the side where you can transfer some skills over, playing tennis as a fun way to do some cross training. And I think it's just taking the time to really enjoy the journey. It's going to fly by. Looking back on a 13-year career, I can't believe how quickly it passed me by. So taking the time to really just enjoy those moments with your friends, your family, your teammates while you're traveling, your support staff, and making the most of the trips, not just showing up to compete.
Zach, who would you place on your Mount Rushmore of wheelchair rugby?
Got to say, Garrett Hickling, one of the greatest to ever do it, especially in the Canada jersey. Riley Batts, obviously Australian superstar, many gold medals to his name. Trevor Hirschfield, new Team Canada coach, one of the greatest low pointers to ever touch a rugby court. Shout out to my guy Jim Roberts, Tokyo gold medalist for Great Britain, mostly because we're boys.
That is a great list. Now, through sport, you've been able to travel to many great places, and this is one of our favorite questions on the show. Do you have an all-time favorite food city that you've been to? A city or destination that is special to you for the food that you had there?
I'm going to go with Okinawa, Japan. Spent a couple trips over there. I was playing in the Japanese league for a few seasons. I mean, as much as I love the rugby there and the people there, the food kept me coming back, I think.
Sorry, what were the dishes like over in Okinawa?
Oh, it didn't matter what you ate. It was just like, you could go to a 7-Eleven or a convenience store there and get some of the best Japanese food you ever had in your life. It's wild. Anything with noodles in it. Soba. Big sushi guy. Just, yeah. Japanese food in general will blow your mind. Even going to like a little izakaya or like the equivalent of their cheap pub food. We could sit there. We'd go after practices every night, sit there for 3 or 4 hours and enjoy some cool refreshments and stuff our face with Japanese cuisine. It was great.
And you mentioned playing over in the Japanese league for a few seasons. What was that like? How did the environment in Japan for rugby differ than what you experienced back here in Canada?
They might be the best wheelchair rugby nation in the world when it comes to their fan bases. I mean, you're playing in a little club tournament and they're packing these arenas of a couple thousand seats. You've got like classrooms full of screaming school kids coming out, bringing the energy. Media wait for you before and after games. Like their league is a big deal over there. Over here, it feels kind of like I don't know, your typical rec league, beer league, couple moms and uncles in the stands taking like cheery on, but like we're not filling it with people who just want to come see the sport. And that's something that they do leading up to Tokyo. I think is when they really got some traction and some attention there. And then obviously, unfortunately, Tokyo, we couldn't have any fans in the arena, or I know it would have been a packed house.
You mentioned the 2015 Pan Am Games of having that home court advantage, and you just mentioned Okinawa and Japan for rugby. Is there any other favorite venues or most memorable places that you got to play in?
Maybe the loudest game I was ever involved in was playing against Brazil in the Rio Paralympics. Brazil wasn't even a top 8 team in the world yet. At that point, they were in as a host, and it was a packed house full of green and yellow, and they are louder than any other event you've ever been at. Every time you hit someone, you're getting booed. Every time it got booed, you made you want to hit somebody else because it was so fun. Just the energy in there was electric. I remember knocking a few people over and feeling like I was public enemy number one when I was out there. But yeah, those might be the most passionate fans I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, and just that environment, and just as you say, it's all about the fun at that point, because you put in all the work, and then to be able to go out there, you see everyone enjoying and celebrating the game is huge. Zach, we know you got to go, but I want to get you out on this question. What's next for Zak Madell?
I'm currently working for HME Home Health out here in Victoria. So I'm going to be distributing medical equipment, wheelchairs, walkers, hospital beds for long-term care facilities, hospitals, private use. And hopefully, somebody in a wheelchair pretty involved in the sports community. I know all kinds of people that could benefit from a company like this. So hopefully I can help set them up in a piece of equipment that suits their needs well and make sure that they're well looked after.
Zach, this is awesome. Thank you so much, and best of luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
And that was our conversation with wheelchair rugby star Zak Madell announcing his retirement from the international team. Nathan, such a great time catching up with him. I love that he appreciated the bucket hat. I wish he could have worn one as well, but he is at work. He was very professional in a professional setting, so I appreciate that. But just hearing his passion and how he was able to speak about the different experiences that he had, whether it was being in London, being in Toronto, or those years competing in Japan. Like, that is just such a wide range of the power that wheelchair rugby has globally, and the impact that it has and the reach it has. And you can just see how he really appreciated that reach globally.
Yeah, and even just how he honored former teammates like Garrett Hickling and even Trevor Hirschfield, and so many different guys that he would have gone up against, whether from GB, the US, and just his love and admiration for the players that he's gone head to head with and against is a very beautiful thing, but also how he's given back his time to help that next generation to just cast that amazing character that Zach is, and the care, the respect and love that he has for his sport, but also everything else he's done too, and just him sharing his stories about competing in Japan and Okinawa and playing in that league, and how those kinds of environments were so loud, so just spectacular, or even being public enemy number one in Rio de Janeiro at the Rio Paralympic Games. How would you handle a whole crowd against you, Alex?
I would probably be a little intimidated, to say the least, like, especially if they're booing me. Now, I will say, like, I haven't done sports in a while, organized or team sports in a while, probably not since high school. But I never had a problem being a bit of the bad guy. I knew I wasn't as good as some of the other players on the field, whether it was soccer or whatever I was doing. But I had no qualms about being the most physical, being, maybe a bit dirty. I'll admit it. I'll use any advantage I can. Oh, I accidentally stepped on your toe. Sorry. I'll just be a menace out there. So I'll be the bad guy. I'll wear that target on my back. would I also be intimidated if it's literally thousands of people booing me and cheering when I get hit? Yeah, but I can emphasize with Zach on wanting to hit more people to get more of a reaction. What about you, Nathan? You've always been individual sports. Are you the bad guy on a team sport, or are you trying to be the goody two shoes and win over the fans with love and admiration?
I think being the heel is a fun role. Being the bad guy can be a real fun spot. And although I was an individual sport in Rio in 2016, just that crowd volume, as Zach said, was incredible. It was fantastic. And just having that kind of attention, but also celebration to Brazil and the Brazilian athletes was remarkable. Like, I was in the pool in the crowd watching as Daniel Diaz won the first gold medal for Brazil at the games in the Paralympics, and just seeing the crowd erupt, seeing the crowd celebrate, and just get involved with such a beautiful thing. But when you're away like that, when you're out of country, you got to love that heel role. But when you get back home, there's no better feeling. As Zach said, the Pan Am Games in Toronto in 2015, having that kind of crowd support is such a major and beautiful thing. So to have that little balance of the both is just a great thing to have.
Oh, and this is like him talking about just the passion, the buy-in from the fans, the media, everything. Like, this is part of why I want to keep growing what we're doing here on PSN, because there's such an appetite globally. But as Zach said, it's like, sometimes you're competing at home. It's like a rec or beer league. You got a couple people in the stands. That's it. There is more that we can do on home soil to really support and grow these sports as an entertainment value. And I feel like, we can be a part of that. I've had a chance to go cover and call games live for goalball and other events. We've done the blind hockey tournaments. It's like you start to see these baby steps, but it's like there is a blueprint. There's a model out there. If we look internationally, that can be what we do to celebrate Canadian athletes at home on home soil. So it just gives me more fuel to, like, we can do more. We can do more. What else can we cover? How can we continue to grow the coverage around these sports and these athletes? Because it's so important. It's so vital. And they see the difference as well. But Nathan, unfortunately, speaking of coverage, this is the end of the program. No time left for final thoughts from you. I'm sorry, I've eaten up the clock, but for you at home, be sure to catch us next time. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you then.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.